Alright everyone, Cowboy Trades here, welcome back to the channel. It's been about 2 weeks since we have updated Solana. We gave you a price target, we looked at some on-chain metrics. We're now going to revise this, let you know where's the next price target that I've got my eyes on to the downside, and also look at a couple of on-chain metrics which are a little bit worrying in my opinion. So let's start off plain and simple, higher time frames. Now, what we highlighted in our previous video was a couple of ranges in which I really think Solana is going to be magnetized to. Number one, $11, 1.618 Fibonacci. We hit this since our most recent video. And also right down here, $10 is a huge psychological price target. Down here at $7.80 as well, you can see between this $10 and $8 range, basically, we do have a semi-decent cluster of volume. It does get a little bit tricky because, like you can see, I say semi-decent, and you know, you can really hear me hesitating to say this, but this is, you know, the most support that we've got built down until about $4.50. And I do think $4.50 is probably going to come into fruition a little bit later on. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, so in the immediate short term, like we talked about, if we zoom into the daily time frame, we gave you this price prediction. We gave you a warning when tons of Solana was being unstaked. We talked about this at $18.60, and we said, in my opinion, we're coming down to $8. Now, we've really started rushing to the downside since we made this video. We are down, or let me correct that, we went down about 41% before bouncing back up, and as you can see, since our last video, we are still down about 25% or so. And how far are we from the current price target to where I think we're going to go down to? We're about 44% of the way. We still got a little ways to go, but as you can see on the daily time frame, we are running into resistance. It almost looks like we are forming a pretty nice bear flag over here, and you can also argue we've almost had a reversion to the mean. The EMA ribbons are coming back down. They currently reside around about $17. I do want to highlight right now, I'm personally not shorting. I may be bearish and I think we're going down to lower price targets, but when I'm making these Solana videos right now, I'm really letting you know this is where I think we're going down to in the bear market, and then these are the ranges where I'm going to be starting to get interested in buying. I personally would not be shorting, you know, when we were like $40 a week or so. I don't think the odds are in your favor if you're shorting. Not saying you can't make profit, but I'm just letting you know this is where we're going down to. This is where my open interest starts picking up in the market. So we've almost completed a reversion to the mean on the daily time frame. Once we have obviously run up to the top of this bear flag, if we do come over to some of the oscillators, you can see the squeeze momentum indicator has started pushing back to the upside a little bit, meaning, you know, we've obviously resided a little bit, we've kicked back some of the bearish momentum, but do bear in mind, you know, we don't always have to switch all the way back over to the green. We are in, you know, very unprecedented times right now. We've got the whole Alameda, you know, Sam Bankman-Fried Solana FUD going round right now, and that is definitely gonna, you know, leave a sour taste in investors' mouths. You can see a lot of the time over on the squeeze momentum indicator, you do start pushing back up, and then, you know, you push back into bearish territory. And in my opinion, this is pretty much what I think we're going to see. I think, you know, the momentum could reside for another day or so, but then I really think we're going to get ready for a brutal wave to the downside. Let's get rid of the squeeze mom. Let's look at what's happening over on the stock RSI. You can see the stock RSI, basically if you short as we come up to this, you know, 98, 99 region, a lot of the time it is a great place to make an entry to the trade. Now, it doesn't always call the exact top. You can see over here, it fired around about $34 that we were flipping bearish, and then it finally actually started to cascade right here at the exact top, 39. It gave a little bit of a failed move here, but then it pushed back up. Momentum started to kick back down, and boom, we got pushed all the way to the downside. So right now, looking at the stock RSI looks like it's completed a reversion to the upper bound, and you know, as you can see here, I mean, look, most of the time you do start to have a move to the downside after the stock RSI has pushed back up to these very elevated levels. Let's get rid of the stock RSI. Let's look at the MFI, the money flow index. A lot of YouTubers, a lot of people like looking at the RSI. I don't really like looking at the RSI because I don't want the volume on my screen as well. So I like to make it plain and simple. The MFI is like the RSI, but it also takes into consideration volume overextensions, how much volume is running into this market. So you get the best of both worlds with this. And as you can see, the money flow index, we've been on this trend line, macro trend line, since about the 4th of April. You can see boom, boom, almost boom, boom. And ever since then, you know, we haven't quite reached the trend line. If we delete this, Didn't want to do that. If we delete this, or I mean I can leave it there, you can kind of see it, but we've started a new line of attack to the downside, which was more brutal than this previous line of attack. You can see one here, and one here. And ever since we did come up to this range, you know, this correlates to the top of the bear flag. If we go back to our previous range, you can see we almost reverted back into the mean, almost into the EMA ribbons. Once again, another reason why I'm not shorting is because we're not in the EMAs. If we were up here, if we were at $17, or let's say in a week or so, I'm wrong about the bear flag breaking down and we push up to $22, this is the kind of range that I would be looking to short for that next move to the downside. For right now, I am really just sitting on the sidelines kind of seeing what happens here, but MFI, volume overextension has happened, and it's probably time that people are going to start selling so we can finally push back down to this $10 range. You can also see if we do go back over to the higher time frames, we did have a big volume cluster right here. You can see a lot of book depth as well, especially in the buy orders. If we pull this out, all the way over here, you can see, zoom into the daily time frame, this is the orange box. Where did we push up to? We pushed up to the volume profiles, meaning we didn't quite have enough liquidity to push down into these lower levels. So what did we do? What did market makers want to do? They pushed us up, grabbed liquidity from these volume clusters around about $15. This is going to get a lot of bulls, extremely bullish. They're going to start buying around at this range. This is the liquidity that market makers need to finally push us all the way back down to the downside and then head to the next volume cluster to the downside, which is around about this $10. Now, you know, once again, I mean, you can almost solely discount this volume profile. Like I did say, it's not the most impressive volume profile, but it does coincide with the massive psychological level, which is obviously $10. A lot of people have been talking about $10 Solana, including myself, for about 6 months or so. I imagine a lot of people are going to start buying around about this $10 range. And once again, if you need a refresher, my price target is unchanged since my last video. We talked about this 58% drop or so down to about $8. And from where we're at right now, we've only got about another 44% to drop to the downside. So what could potentially push us to this next leg to the downside? Well, let's look at some on-chain metrics which are a little bit worrying right now. So we all know what's been happening in the past month or so with the whole Sam Bankman-Fried FTX debacle. FTX became insolvent, Alameda Research is now insolvent, and this is where it gets very, very tricky. If you didn't know, Alameda Research, which is, once again, founded by Sam Bankman-Fried from FTX, they were an early investor in Solana. Now, how much do you think they currently hold in Solana? Well, their locked stake is currently at 48.6 million. Now, this may not mean anything if you don't know the entire circulating supply of Solana, but the entire circulating supply right now is 362 million. So what does this mean? Let's pull up the calculator. So Sam Bankman-Fried, his Alameda Research has 48 million Solana. So we'll just put this as 48. Come over to Sol Explorer, the circulating supply is 362 million. So how many times does Sam Bankman-Fried's 48 million go into the circulating supply? Or in other words, what is the percent of the supply of Solana that Sam Bankman-Fried currently has locked in this stake? Well, it is 0.13, which is a percentage which just basically means 13%. So approximately 13%, a little bit more of the entire of Solana's supply right now, which is currently circulating, is owned by Sam Bankman-Fried. Now, what do you think's going to happen to that? Do you think that he's going to be allowed to keep that? Or do you think that he's going to have to, use that? He's probably going to be forced to, liquidate this in court. And by the way, you might be looking at this and thinking a locked stake and thinking that this means that it's locked for, years or something like that. But that's not the case. If you do know Solana, you know that Solana operates based on epochs, meaning it has a certain set amount of days in which you can stake and unstake and gain rewards within epochs. Now, these normally last about 2.5 days. And hypothetically speaking, Sam Bankman-Fried could boom, liquidate like that. Now, the next epoch ends in 21 hours. I am not insinuating he's going to unstake in 21 hours. I'm literally just letting you know, hypothetically speaking, it doesn't take too long to unstake from an epoch. I think it's going to take a very long time before this amount of Solana gets unstaked. I think this court case is probably going to drag on for quite some time. So do bear in mind, I am saying this is extremely bearish, but this is more of a midterm thing that we do need to worry about. Now, moving on from here, the validator stake, if we do come over, you can see the deactivating stake has actually significantly gone down. Only 86,000 Solana is getting unstaked. and you've got like 9 million Solana being staked, which sounds impressive, but you come back to previous epochs and you can kind of see why. I mean, the amount of deactivated stake in the past couple of weeks or so has been absolutely brutal, and this is obviously what has caused price to rocket to the downside. People were unstaking, sell, mass panic in the markets, and this is basically why we push to the downside. Now, on-chain metrics in terms of growth, the Solana network seems to be slowing down a lot right now. And I don't mean slowing down in terms of users, I don't mean slowing down in terms of transactions, because if you do look at new addresses, if you look at active addresses, if you look at purchases on the network, if you look at transactions, they're all pretty elevated levels, and they're somewhat impressive, because obviously Solana is a very cheap network. If you've never used it before, you can basically slap $1 into a phantom wallet and do hundreds of thousands of transactions. You'd probably put $1 in a phantom wallet and you could do a lifetime of fees, and you would never even get close to using all of that. So Solana's extremely cheap, so it has a lot of transactions, it has a lot of movement, and I'll talk about what a lot of these transactions are in a second. But in terms of the value moved on chain, it's very, very diminished right now. There's not a lot of people that are looking to move anything on chain, to be honest. So the network is very much struggling right now, which is why, obviously, another reason why price has been moving to the downside. So what are most of these transactions? Well, as we all know, Solana's basically that degenerative Web3, and you come over to things like Magic Eden and Solana Art, and most of the transactions, to be honest, are from NFTs. In fact, I've been a very frequent user of the Solana network. Maybe about 9 months ago, when I was buying a few NFTs and stuff, buying and selling, and I can say as well for myself, probably 99% of all my transactions have been involved in Magic Eden, Solana Art, stuff like that. But the problem is, all of these projects that are coming out right now, they're just extremely saturated. It's just like the same artwork again and again and again and again and again. And it's relatively the same throughout the Ethereum space as well. But obviously it's a lot easier to just post some really bullshit saturated project, because you could release an entire project on Solana for relatively cheap, whereas on Ethereum, even the base fee of an NFT would be like hundreds of pounds. So all I'm saying here is, you come over to some of these projects, they're all going for extremely cheap right now. So NFT degenerates are still making transactions. People are still buying NFTs, but they're extremely oversaturated. And when you're looking at, value moved on chain, it's really diminishing over time. So from everything we've looked at, lower time frames, looking at some bearish signals, you can look at the momentum indicators. We talked about the MFI, we talked about the stock RSI, how it looks like we are starting to top out as well. Like I said, don't really like to use the volume too much, it just takes up too much of my screen. But volume overextension is definitely there, and we can see that in the money flow index and a couple of the other oscillators and direction indicators we've looked at as well. You can also see higher time frames, we've grabbed liquidity back from this $15 range. We've almost completed that reversion to the mean. Maybe we already have topped out. I'm not saying that we can't push up a tiny bit further, but what I would be saying is this reversion to the mean looks pretty much complete in my opinion. And I think we're getting ready to move back down to this $8 price target that I previously talked about. Now, if we clear up the screen, the one final thing that I want to talk about is, why I think that we're coming down to this, $5 range approximately. You can see, obviously, $5 is going to be a huge psychological level as well. And, I don't even need to draw, the volume profiles. I can see that there was way more ranges established, previous resistances, supports, flipped resistance again. This was turned into support. There's a lot more going on down at this range than just this straight run to the upside. And what normally happens in these markets is when you come down to an area where there's lots of data previously traded, you normally spend a while there. So as you can see, there's another big consolidation range over here. If we drag this out, where did we spend a ton of time trading? We spent a ton of time trading here. What happened as soon as we took out the floor of this trading range? Well, we rocketed down to new levels, and you can currently see we're residing in a very, very small range here. So I pretty much think that we're already done, and you can see we've basically come up to the top of this range again, and I think it is time for us to start coming down to the downside. So in my opinion, like I said, when you look at this, there's really not a lot of data traded around this range. As soon as we kind of fall beneath this $12 range, especially when we take out this $11 low, I think it's going to relatively quickly take us down to the $8 price target that we highlighted, and then in the next few weeks or so, we might even find Solana coming down to about $5. So if you're new to the channel, don't think by any means I am disliking Solana. I think Solana is going to be the biggest Web3 blockchain next year. I think it's going to be the hub for NFTs. I don't necessarily think any altcoins have any intrinsic value, but I'm a trader. I'm here to make money. I'm not here to, you know, say, oh, this is, you know, game-changing technology that I want to invest in. Don't care about any of that. I'm here to make money. I think Solana is going to make money next cycle. When it does make money, I think it's going to probably $500 in the next cycle. What's going to happen when it hits $500? I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to get out the network. I might buy back cheap, but I'll probably move on to a new project. This is what I do, cycle over cycle through the altcoins, make profit here, sell it, make profit on a new altcoin, sell it, make profit on a new altcoin, sell it. You do not want to be a bag holder. So yeah, just thought I'd say that I'm bearish on Solana in the short term. I'm bearish in the midterm. I'm very bullish on it for the next cycle. And you can't say I dislike Solana because my profile pic on YouTube and, you know, basically this entirety of the background are all Solana NFTs. So now we got that out of the way. If you are new to the channel, welcome to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. This is all I've got for you today. If you did enjoy, like, comment, share it with your friends. As always, my friends, Cowboy out. Peace.